Good evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting Monday, December the 18th, 2023, 7 p.m. to order and to acknowledge we are on the traditional territory of the Stahelas. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is introduction of late items.
I have one lead item from Councillor Allen, and that is the deputy mayor. So I'd like to put that under new business as item C. Any other late items? Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is approval of the agenda.
Do I have a mover approval of agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is adoption of council minutes.
So there's item A, that the special pre-closed council meeting minutes of November the 30th, 2023 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Errors or omission? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. The next item B, that the regular council meeting minutes of December the 4th, 2023 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Allen. Errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is business arising from the minutes.
Business arising from minutes. Do we have any business arising from the minutes? I have two items here. And the first item is on with regards to the special pre-closed council meeting minutes of November the 30th. So I wish to move that council release the only resolution of council from that closed meeting of council dated November the 30th, 2023. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion. Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion because I think that this particular decision that council made at that meeting, having listened to a very concerned delegation, is the type of thing that needs to be announced to the public as quickly as possible. And in my opinion, the proper way to do that is to do what you have just done, which is to ask for permission from the council, and then speaking as the mayor and spokesman for the council to make the announcement to the public of what the council has decided at that meeting. So I'm very much in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ready to call the question on that? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Councillor Facio opposed. So I am going to, as a result of release of that, I'm going to move that Curtis Jennis be appointed as the fire chief of the Harrison Hot Springs Fire Department. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion. No discussion.
Well, might I suggest that you inform the public of the resolution that was passed at the closed meeting of November the 30th? Would that be apropos?
Yeah, the motion was just to release it to the public, so I am not going to announce it at this time.
You're not going to do it?
I am not going to, but it can be released to the public.
But it will be announced by somebody soon, then, I expect.
It's public knowledge as of now.
Sorry?
It is public knowledge as of now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the table that Curtis Jennis be appointed as the fire chief of the Harrison Hot Springs Fire Department. It was moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Allen. Further discussion on that? Councillor Facio, you look like you're trying to get on.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Councillor Passio.
Yeah, I think this is an area where we need further discussion with, as a full council on the decision. So my personal point of view is I think this should be taken back to another meeting where we can discuss this in more depth with the full council present. Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion on this. So again, the motion on the table is that Curtis Dennis be appointed as the fire chief of the Harrison Hot Springs Fire Department. Ready to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails with Councillor Facio and Jackson opposed. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask, where does that leave us with the fire chief? Who is the current fire chief?
The interim fire chief is Curtis Dennis.
He's the acting fire chief?
Correct.
Okay, so we do have an acting fire chief in place.
We do have an acting fire chief in place.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next order of business, please.
The next order of business is consent agenda.
A motion for receipt moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Facio. Discussion on the. Ready to call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Nobody opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just on the consent agenda, I'm looking to see where my report on the 4 trees and the Adopt a Tree program comes in on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not under here, but we're.
It's under new business, is it?
Yeah, the question has been called, Councillor, so.
All
So
right.
the vote was called,
Okay, that's right. Thank you.
so nobody was opposed.
No.
Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is delegations and petitions, and there are none this evening. Moving on to correspondence. Item A is an email dated December 3rd from Dave Hollins regarding the dike project.
Thank you. Do I have a mover for a receipt? Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Facio. Discussion on receipt. Ready to call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is business arising from correspondence.
Business arising from the correspondence. I just want to talk about the email here from Dave Hollins. He's got some good pictures in there. I thank him for what he's done. It gives some good visual of the dike. And again, I appreciate his comments. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is reports of councillors, committees, committee of the whole, and commissions.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. No, nothing to report on, just wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Committee report from me, Mr. Mayor, but would just like to say how delighted I was to attend this hall a week ago and well, not a week ago, to have the Harrison Gospel Chapel Choir along with the Salvation Army Brass Band give us a wonderful concert. And I'd just like to say how much I appreciate the fact that this hall was being used in such a way and how excellent the performance actually was. And I hope to see more of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Messing around with us tonight. Couple of reports here from the Board of Directors meeting on December the 14th at Regional District. One of the main topics for discussion that was discussed in the open and went into the closed was the Code of Responsible Conduct Policy update, and they're following the model from Squamish. I consider that to be one of the best models around. As we know, we haven't formalized ours yet, nor I believe has Chilliwack. And also the discussion came up in regards to what Councillor Vidal brought up at the UBCM convention, is that the province should be having an ethics commissioner appointed to conduct the code of conduct if there's any problems. So that was on that point there. The open meeting on December the 7th was the point in time homeless count and survey, the final report. For those who want to go through some 200 pages, I'll just give you a brief outline. There was 1,094 individuals identified as experiencing homelessness in the FBRD on March the 7th to 8th of 2023. That's an increase of 22% from 2020 when it was last done. And 748 additional people, or an increase of 260% since 2014. Eastern Fraser Valley, there's 9%, Abbotsford 37%, Mission 16%, and Chilliwack 38%. There was 46 project partners who were involved in the survey that were asked to give their time as volunteers to get involved in this. And the health issues, reported health issues from 217 to 223, there was 333 addiction in 217, 440 in 220, and 519 in 2023. It's gone up to 58%. And there was the physical, medical conditions, acquired brain injuries, and learning disabilities. There was no count, except in 2023 was 230, and in brain injuries there's 242. The 60 years and over, first of all, proportion of youth experience homelessness from 2014 to 23 went from 4% to 18%, and the proportion of seniors experience homelessness went from 2014 to 2023 from 4% to 15%. There's been quite a change over the years. And the last one here, I just don't want to go through too much here. Homelessness is a complex issue that requires system level changes and increased supports tailored to the needs of those currently or at risk of experiencing homelessness. So that was a report from, this comes from Dr. Ron Van Wyk of Anron Consulting Incorporated. And he's been doing this now for several years, doing this survey. So I'd like to thank him for doing that. And I believe that is all. Oh, one last one. I knew there was something, which coming down the line will be a cost to the municipalities, will be the update to the combined E911 budgetary risk and the new NG911 transition. The transition to the next generation 911, NG911, is well underway with the decommissioning of existing 911 networks planned for March 2025. Due to the complexity and scale of building a new nationwide 911 network, there are many uncertainties, including implementation operating costs. The 911 service area is funded by regional call answer levy on telephone landlines and supports the primary initial 911 dispatch, transfer callers to ambulance, fire or police dispatch. The regional fire dispatch service area is funded by tax requisition and supports the secondary, the new generation. Staff reported on the budgetary risk facing the combined 911 service area and the transition to NG 911. Staff wish to share information they have learned, and it basically comes to conclusion, the cost to maintain the combined service is increasing while funding is decreasing. NG 911 service delivery improvements and 911 volumes are driving the cost increase. The decrease is funding as a result of an outdated 911 call answer levy. So that's be implemented in 2025, and there'll be some changes in the financing to the requisitions. Thank you, Mr. Mayorwood.
Thank you, Councillor. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is reports from mayor.
So I had the honor of attending the Agassiz Harrison Community Services Christmas lunch. It was an event. It was a packed full house. They had a few entertainers there singing Christmas songs the entire time. They even managed to get me up to sing some Christmas songs, and I'm not much of a singer, but it was a great community event. And not only was it a great event with the residents of Harrison, it was with the residents of Agassiz, so it was a really nice combined effort on both communities together for a very moving event. The next, I just wanted to talk about the Salvation Army ringing of the bells. So my wife and I were there outside of the Red Apple. There's quite a number of people that stopped by and put some money into the kettle, or else they swiped their card, or not tapped their card, I should say. So I think there was some good donations there, which was nice to see. And I've been informed that money from the Salvation Army now is going to the food bank. Next item I want to just bring a reminder out is that the village has a Christmas light contest. It's Councillor Facio, I think, is going to be driving around doing the judging on the December the 20th. So that's Wednesday, I believe. Not you? Okay, sorry, Councillor. So thank you. 2 volunteers, if you didn't hear that, are going to be going around. And as you drive through the village, even tonight, it's nice to see all of the Christmas lights that are out. It looks like we've got a good year of for people to have an opportunity to win here. Next one I wanted to talk about was I attended the Letzimat C2C meeting, and that was with our First Nations neighbors and the District of Kent. There's a number of conversations that went on in that meeting. I think we all learned a little bit, and I think one of the things that kind of jumped out at me is the all the First Nations have got together and in our surrounding areas here, and they're doing I believe it's a geological study. So all the stability of all of the mountainsides. So they're working on study something that's going on over, I think it's just in the beginning stages now, but it'll be happening over the next number of years. But the unfortunate part about it is, I guess, with the way that they get their funding from it, we cannot participate with the First Nations grant applications. So while they all participated together, the District of Kent and the Village of Harrison Hot Springs has been left out of the survey. But nevertheless, there should be some really interesting information that comes out of that study. There was another interesting concern that came up from our First Nations neighbors, and I think it's important, just to know what's happening in the neighborhood. And their septics, anyone that has a septic field that's on First Nations land now has to either truck it all the way to the Iona treatment plant or Annis's Island, or they have to take it all the way past Cache Creek. So where they used to take it to, I believe it was the Chilliwack Mission wastewater treatment plant, it no longer accepts it. So they have been effectively cut off of getting rid of their waste. So it's unfortunate that, you know, that a community, many communities, that all of a sudden are faced with an issue like that. And there was some other discussion with regarding the wastewater treatment in the District of Kent and the Village of Hot Springs. It was a really good meeting. Would like to comment on the and it's with regret that I announced that the chairman of our advisory planning commission, Ken Gisborne, has offered his resignation. He's been involved in the village here in a number of events. We all appreciate all the work that he's put in, and I wish him well on whatever else he plans to keep himself busy with. Sorry to see you go, Ken. I just wanted to talk about the dike. The open house was on December the 7th. I'm going to ask our Chief Administrative Officer just in a second, just to maybe give a little update on that. But I just wanted to talk about that. So the open house was on the 7th, and that was the first round of the public engagement for the dike. So there is a second round of public engagement, which will be coming somewhere in the new year here in 2024. But there is right now online on the village's website, there is a dike survey that's open right now. And it's open until January the 24th. So I would encourage anyone with concerns or comments or questions, I guess, to have a look online for that survey. Maybe just before I move on here, did our Chief Administrative Officer, did you want to just update a little bit about the open house, or were you going to have a report coming back, or what was the?
I can give an update. Yeah, absolutely. It was actually, we saw about between 30 and 35 people. We didn't count, but it was, there's some good dialogue. There were some good conversations with our engineers and the landscape architect. I just wanted to clarify, I think the online portion is, I think it's on to the 12th. Yeah, not the 24th, it's the 12th. However, you know, we can still remove or receive emails from info up until our next meeting. We haven't decided yet when the information will be coming back to council. The timeline with, because I think we have the meeting on the 15th, I believe, in January. It might be a little bit close to get a report together. If not, it'll be probably the first one of February. But we will work with the design team to hopefully bring some information. If we can, we'll try and get it in for the 15th.
Thank you. I wanted just to comment here on, I've heard a lot of people talking about our rink, and I've had emails, correspondence on that. I just think it's an important conversation for anybody that's especially the kids that want to use the rink. It was a decision of council way back, probably 5 months ago here to discontinue the rink. It was brought back up. It's come back and forth a few times over and over here. But one of the problems is I see it is the rink where it's located there, with the sand that gets on it, the wind that comes through, the debris that gets on the rink. It seems like the rink is way out of everyone else's reach. The village also has a problem trying to have employees there that can actually open it up and rent out the skates. So it's something that's, I think all businesses here in the village are suffering from, and that's getting employees. So there's a number of issues with that. But another big part of that, and I remind everybody, is that there was almost $500,000 that was going to be spent, and that was going to be for a cover and a concession and fire pits to all go along with that. So the original amount, my understanding, and the rink has been upgraded once in size. So that's almost $1 million for that rink. So $1 million is a lot of money, even though it comes from the hotel taxes indirectly. It's still, it becomes something that the village owns. So now the village is responsible for the operation of it, the maintenance costs of it. This is all paid by us here as in our taxes. And there's a lot of money that's in that. So for that other $500,000, I don't know if it's been decided yet what it's going to be spent on. But there's a number of other, I think, initiatives that are out there, and I've heard one that is going to be coming back, and I hope to hear something soon on it. And that's for a water park for the kids, and possibly turning that concrete area by the main washrooms into a water park. But any type of idea is a good idea for the kids. And I just want to end here. Somebody else made a suggestion there of actually putting the rink actually on top of the actual washroom building itself at the plaza. It's got a cover on it. It's well lit. It probably could serve as a good place, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the rink has to be there just for the lights by the lake or for the winter time. So it's just all different things to look at. So I just wanted to mention that about the rink. So I just had two other quick ones here. And just to our Chief Administrative Officer again, do we have any updates at all on the evacuation route?
The latest that we had was there was correspondence with, we spoke with the District of Kent. We had the District of Kent, and I do believe it was their fire chief, toured representatives from Parks BC up to the route, because they have never seen it. They weren't aware of what it looked like or where it was, so they walked it. And they quickly went back to Victoria, and we haven't heard anything since. They did encourage including the Seabird Island in our application to avoid having multiple applications. So we're still waiting to hear what the next steps are.
Thank you. That's just the last one. Can you just, to our Chief Administrative Officer again, can you just provide us all just with on the Fire Smart program? And just an update on that one.
I'll have to defer that to Christy Evans. I believe we have her on Zoom. Our community services manager.
She's online. Thanks. Can you hear us, Christy? We can't see you. Oh, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Hi there. You're just looking for an update on the Fire Smart program?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we are just getting sort of everything updated for on the back end for some updates to our web page to occur, to have everything clearly laid out for residents, of some really great resources and videos that they can reference. We are planning towards an open house in March and are getting confirmation from Emergency Management BC, as well as some other important emergency resources to be present at that time. And then, yeah, I think that's kind of about it right now.
So a question for you, and which I've been asked, have we actually put the application in?
We were able to squeak in the one for the 2023, and we are waiting to hear on that one, because that one was the intent to, for their future fundings, the UBCM's program has changed slightly. So in order to apply for the 2024 year, you need to already have a community wildfire resiliency plan, a specific Fire Smart position, and as well be participating on a regional Fire Smart committee. So we are working away at all those bits and pieces while we wait to hear on the results.
Thank you. Next order of business, please, then.
Mr. Mayor, can we ask you questions about your report?
No, there's no questions under the mayor's report. The
I'm
op-
I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about the geological study,
well,
because
you
we
can-
have very, very extensive geological studies already done, including the village's geotechnical reports.
Councillor, we're gonna move on here. If you. we can
Okay.
talk- We can talk about that,
Yeah.
about that later. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is reports from staff, and there are none on this agenda. Moving on to bylaws, there's an intermunicipal business license amendment bylaw number 1196/2023 before council this evening. And the recommendation is that intermunicipal business license amendment bylaw number 1196/2023 be given final reading and adoption.
Move Mayor Wood.
Thank you. So moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion on that? Call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is new business from Mayor Wood regarding the development master plan.
Sure, so that's mine. So the Development Master Plan. So whereas the Advisory Planning Commission meeting of December the 7th, 2023 clearly shows the frustration of members with the lack of process, procedural fairness, and the common rules of law. And whereas the Advisory Planning Commission members, which are all unpaid volunteers, did an outstanding job of researching the development and asking many questions. And whereas the developers, the public, and the Advisory Planning Commission members are sharing the same grief in our lack of process. And whereas there are an estimated 15 outdated and conflicting village bylaws that form part of the development process. And whereas these estimated 15 bylaws were by council resolution many months back, referred to a committee of the whole meeting for discussion. And whereas council does not have the knowledge to revise the bylaws, and whereas the province government, the province is changing the legislation regarding development, therefore be it resolved, I move that staff be directed to retain a third-party independent planning consultant to review and provide a comprehensive master plan for all development in the village. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion.
Well,
Councillor Allen.
I think that your motion is very apropos, Mr. Mayor. I was a witness at the last APC meeting, and I couldn't help but notice the frustration on the part of both APC members and the proponent of a project with the process that has evolved in Harrison Hot Springs. This is something that I did for many years in my capacity as a realtor, dealing with development bylaws, zoning bylaws, OCPs, and the processes required. And I just think that what has happened with our Harrison bylaws is that they've got themselves into a complete tangle. And as a result, it's no longer clear to myself as a councillor, to the applicants who wish to develop, and to others who are watching the process, how exactly this is supposed to happen. It lacks coordination and clarity, and it's kind of been broken into silos where you have a bunch of issues in a bylaw over here and some other issues in a bylaw over here, and they don't actually match up, and there isn't any joined up thinking in the process. And when I say joined up thinking, I come at it from the perspective of somebody who's looking at a project and says, what do I need to do to make this move forward and to ensure that the public interest is protected, that the developer has a reasonable chance of making a return on his investment, and that we achieve the objectives that we've set out in our own official community plan. And the way the current process has evolved, that just seems to be more like a game of snakes and ladders, where you move ahead a few steps, you hit the top of a snake, you slide back to square two, and then you climb a bit more. It just seems to be inappropriate. And when I spoke to people in the development business, only the very brave are prepared to come to Harrison and take on our bylaws and bureaucracy in order to try and develop. And I think it would help us enormously if we could clarify our bylaws and our processes. When I say clarify, I don't mean simplify. The OCP has been reduced from 140 pages to 60 pages or something, which some have heralded as a good thing. But from my perspective, that is not a good thing, because when you're putting out a fairly complex set of objectives in a zoning bylaw or an OCP bylaw, what people need is clarity. They need to be clear on what the rules are, what the objectives are. And if you edit those down and take out the clear language and leave vague language, that does not fill them with confidence and hope. The preamble to our OCP says that the bylaw is supposed to give residents and investors a strong sense of confidence in where the village is going development-wise. But by making them all vague and unclear, and by reducing the verbiage necessary for clarity, it doesn't achieve that. You really have to have those words. And those words are not something that intimidates people who are in the business. They understand the big words, they know what they mean, and it's the clarity that people are looking for. So they're clear on what their options are and how they can proceed. So I think that the review that you're suggesting is long overdue, and I fully support your initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Sorry, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship.
Sorry.
My concern is we're gonna get bogged down again in more bureaucracy. We've had a lot of fine development in Harrison over the last 6 or 7 or 8, 10 years. And to me, it's done very, very well. I'm not opposed to having our staff look at the 15 bylaws, if there's that many, and coming back with report. But I think that's all we really have to do. We have to be careful that we don't keep talking about stuff and not doing anything. This is what I think is happening here. We're getting caught up in all this rhetoric and not moving forward. And I'm really concerned about it. This year has gone by so quickly, and I can't honestly say I've accomplished anything. And that's not why I ran. I want to get things done. And if you keep putting roadblock in front of it, we're going to be here next December waiting for Christmas and nothing happened. So I can support the idea that staff look at the bylaws and come back with recommendations, but not having an independent person to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Passio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'm not, to my knowledge as of today, I'm not sure whether that I've heard of any hesitant developer coming into Harrison. Our growth has been quite something the last 2 or 3 years in Harrison. The frustration isn't always at the office level here. It's at other levels when they're going to get their registrations or their building permits. But that's something that's in every area. Municipality is having a problem with a shortage of planners to try and deal with the tremendous amount of developments going around the province. That's why the University of Fraser Valley introduced last year a special program to get more people to take up planning. I personally, as I say, I was the chair for 3 years of the APC, and we went through the same terms of reference and process that we have in place now. I mean, we have to be thankful that volunteers who come forward for the APC, and they've always done a great job, and I appreciate that. But their main plan when they're meeting is to do land use is their main topic. Land use planning. That's what it's about, and they are an advisory to the council. Personally, I think that that our staff has the capabilities, or they should come back with a report, how they're going to deal with, if there is these amount of, like Councillor Jackson said, amount of bylaws to deal with, but I think we have the professionalism within our own our own office here to deal with these things. So I will be opposed to this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to comment on it. I myself have developed 2 properties here in the village, very simple properties. And the development process has been. That better? That better? Okay. So I've developed 2 properties here in the village. Each property is treated totally different. It depends which employee, because the employee doesn't have a set of rules. So the employee is going on what they believe is right. Our bylaws are so conflicting that one bylaw will totally contradict another one. Your interpretation of a definition is different from another definition in another bylaw. So I've got in front of me here, and there's probably at least 30, I'm going to say at least 30 different bylaws that a developer has to look at for developing a piece of property. There should be something that's relatively simple. A homeowner wants to build a house. They come into the village office and they pick up, here's the booklet. This has got everything in it. These are the steps. There's no question about it. It makes it easier for staff. Staff have got to be just as frustrated. I've had a couple of developers talking to me just recently with regarding one developer was not allowed to demolish the existing buildings on the property until after he got his development approval permit processed. And the other developer was told that he had to take the dwellings down before he could even apply for it. So the developers don't know, and they're frustrated, and they've made it quite clear that they're really, really frustrated. And then they get a step through this process, and it's just like, well, we've just gone back a step. So it's really, really difficult for them. I mean, we have a number of projects here which have been sitting on the table, going through our own internal processes. It hasn't even got to the building permit process, and it's been well over 2 years. So it's, you know, if we want to promote good development in the village here, we have to have a good set of development guidelines for them so that everybody follows the same set of rules. It's not if we like that development or we don't like that development. Every developer has the same right to present their case based on the rules that are in our bylaws. So council just had a development that came, and we had, because of one of our bylaws, which is the application process, and it didn't even involve a picture. So here we have councilors sitting around this table here making a decision to move to the next step of a development without even a picture of what the building looks like. And how can we even imagine that council doesn't know what it looks like? I mean, there should be even models so that we can see it. Well, I'm told, and it's not in our procedural bylaw for the application. Well, it's absolutely, it's crazy. I can't see how council can let something go without even looking at the basics. I mean, I heard one of the advisory planning commission members, and they're only supposed to look at the zoning amendments. So the zoning amendment, they wanted to add an extra 10 feet, 17 feet, I don't remember what it was. So they wanted to have a drawing that had actual measurements on it so they could see what 10 or 17 feet would look like. And they're told that's not part of the process. So the developers out in the audience trying to show pictures of what it looks like, and the members are sitting there in frustration, not able to see what in fact they're even looking at. So, you know, we have a process that's clearly broken. And I can talk again, and I'm going to bounce back even to myself for building 2 simple homes here. So the building permit process from the Fraser Valley Regional District was absolutely awesome. And that is what they do. They look at the structure. They don't care if the house is on too close to the corner and the sight lines are blocked. They don't care if we have trees in the yard. They don't care about your drainage. They don't care about your sewers. They just look to make sure the structure meets the BC building code. Boom, you get your permit. So we have another department and it seems to bounce from one to another of who actually looks to see that it makes our zoning bylaws. I mean, we can just look at the development here, which is coming along on St. Alice here. I mean, it's a nice looking building, but there's the sight lines right at the corner there. So that's clearly in our zoning bylaws, and yet they were able to build quite close to the corner. We have like if you just walk down there and have a look now, there's like 2.5 feet wide is the sidewalks on St. Alice. 2.5 feet wide. You open the door for any of those businesses and you can't even, there's cars parked all beside it. I mean, how could we have made such a big mistake like that? I don't understand it. And as you turn around and now we're going to look at, I'm going to come also from St. Alice and start coming towards where we are tonight and on Lillooet. So we look at the back of all of these buildings, we look at these ugly parkades, and then on the other side, maybe an older home or something. But if we're going to make that look like a nice tourist destination, there should be storefronts. There should be something architecturally that's pleasing, not a big concrete wall with just all entrances into parkades. We don't have much land here. We should get it right. So we don't have any conceptual drawings of how we even want that to look. One of the things that came up in the OCP, and I've been against the OCP for a number of reasons, but I'm not going to get into the OCP part. But at the June 19, 2023 meeting regarding the adoption of the OCP, we were advised from our planner that immediately upon adoption of the OCP, that we have to have a development approval information bylaw, and we have to have a design guideline policy. These were both discussed at that same meeting. So when we approved the OCP, all the design guidelines that are in our present OCP are now gone. So we have no design guidelines. So when a developer comes in, puts his application in, there's no guidelines. So the staff need help. The staff needs someone to help them make these policies, help them put these bylaws and processes in place. They're not developers. They're not experts. You can't expect our staff to get to and to be what we need. This needs to come from a professional third party, and that's why I say third party. And I'm thinking of a large independent planning consultant, someone that does this on a daily basis that can help us put this together. We drive into the village now and I mean, we've done a terrible job architecturally of how it looks like. And it's like some places we have curbs, some places we have curbs and grass, some places we have curbs and sidewalks. We have everything you can think of. And when we drive into the village here, I'm embarrassed. I'm absolutely embarrassed of how it is. And we have so much beauty here, the environment, what we have. And we have one chance right now to get it right. Once these buildings are built, they're good. They're there for 50 years. So what I'm trying to do is, like, when you look at that advisory planning commission meetings, the last two meetings, you can see their frustrations of not having proper drawings so that they can see it. They ask for some reports. Well, they cannot see the reports. They say only the council can see the reports. Well, I'll tell you, as a mayor, I haven't even seen the reports. So, excuse me. So we're going in blind. So I really urge council to really consider what they've said here, and let's try to attract some good planners. Let's look after this village architecturally. Let's make it so that people want to come here and develop in a smart sense. Ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails with Counselor Jackson and Counselor Facio opposed. Next order of business, please.
The next item is item 14B, new business from Counselor Allen regarding Adopt a Tree program.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak to this, and to do so, I'd like to make the motion that council accept my offer to adopt the 4 oak trees on Lillooet Avenue. You've all had my 2-page letter of offer, which is very clear, and I'm prepared to answer any questions that council may have on that. But just to recap it, basically what I'm proposing is that for the next 3 years, I and my company will adopt the 4 oak trees that currently exist on West Lillooet Avenue from the post office to the Harrison Hotel. And during that time, and with the cooperation and supervision of Urban Environment, who did the report on these trees back in July, me and my company and I will carry out the work or have it carried out by other professional arborists as required to prune the trees, to dress their wounds, to remove any dead and dying limbs, to clear the compacted gravel from around the area by the roots, the drip zone, and to add fertilizer and irrigation as necessary. And it is my hope that at the end of that 3-year period, that these trees will have been returned to health, and that we will be able to enjoy them for perhaps another 20 or 30 or 50 years. The oak itself is quite a long-lived tree, and these trees are suffering from neglect. They're suffering from the fact that they're planted basically in sterile sand and are undernourished. And they're suffering from some of the abuse of vehicles and other things that have affected their health. So it's my belief that these trees can be returned to full health. And when they do, they will provide the shady boulevard that was envisioned 130 years ago when they were planted. I believe that Lillooet Avenue needs to be treated as a major street in the downtown core area and not as the back alley with entrances and garbage cans and overflow parking. The street is one of our major streets for local people to use, going to the post office, etc. And while we don't have an overall streetscape plan as yet for that street, we can start by preserving these trees. The area around the trees, I believe, should probably be planted in grass, which will require irrigation. And just by having some grass patches on that north side of the street and perhaps some benches for people to sit on will make a huge difference to the ambience of Lillooet Avenue West. So that's my motion, and I'd be interested in hearing council accept my offer and let me get on with saving these 4 trees. Thank you.
So the motion, Counselor Allen, was, can you repeat that again?
The motion was to accept my offer dated November 29th and allow me to protect and save the 3 trees for the next 3 years.
Do I have a seconder for that? I'll second that for conversation. Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Worship. If Mr. Allen wishes to resign from council and make a presentation with reference to saving the trees, I think that's one thing. But you certainly can't have a council member being involved in this sort of, I'm actually quite disappointed that this is on the agenda. This should not happen. You cannot have this. This is perhaps maybe a real conflict of interest.
Counselor Jackson.
So,
Order, please.
no, I mean, your worship,
Counselor,
just think about it.
Counselor Jackson, please keep it. Counselor Pasio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I find this a very unusual request from a councillor. I see no recommendation from staff, no business plan for safety, flaggers, possible road closure or alternating traffic. Required certificate of, is there a required certificate of a qualified tree management, liability insurance, workers' compensation, or even discussions with our village union. Section 25 of the community charter, the council must not provide a grant, advantage, or other form of assistance to a business. These types of trees have been referred as heritage. To my knowledge, we do not have a designated heritage conservation area or bylaw in the village. Local Government Act 616 or 586 do not distinguish trees as part of heritage. Yes, buildings they do. We do, other than the three areas of crown reduction, dead limbing and wound dressing, I don't see a real business plan, so I will not be supporting this suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to comment on it. I think it's commendable for for any person to come forth and put the effort to save these trees. We just spent $100,000 on an urban forest master plan. If we haven't learned anything from that urban forest master plan, I'm at a loss. This is an excellent start to it. Actually, I would move an amendment to the motion, is that this is accepted in principle. Do I have a seconder to the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion on the amendment. Call the question on the amendment only. All in favor? Opposed? The amendment fails. Councillor Facio and Jackson opposed. Go back to the main motion. Call the question. All in favor?
Mr.
I've called the question. Thank you.
As the mover of the motion, aren't I entitled to a closing comment?
I already called the question. Sorry, Councillor.
Okay,
So call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Again, with the main motion fails with Councillor Facio and Jackson opposed. So the next order of business, please. I think we've added item C.
The next item is item C, new business from Councillor Allen regarding deputy mayor appointments.
Go ahead, Councillor Allen.
yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the following motion. Whereas section 130 of the BC Community Charter requires that there be a deputy mayor appointed to provide leadership and continuity in the absence of the mayor, i.e. designation of a member to act in place of the mayor, section 130.1, the council must, in accordance with its applicable procedure bylaw, provide for the designation of a councillor as a member responsible for acting in the place of the mayor when the mayor is absent or otherwise unable to act, or when the office of mayor is vacant. That's the quote. And whereas this responsibility is mandatory, note the word must, and council cannot ignore the statute and leave the position open. And whereas our procedural bylaw number 1164 requires, and I quote, deputy mayor means a member of council who is nominated by the mayor and appointed by council, requires that any such appointment be initiated by a nomination from the mayor alone. And whereas Mayor Wood has nominated Councillor Allen for the position of deputy mayor during 2024, now be it resolved that Councillor John J. Allen be appointed to the position of deputy mayor for the year 2024. So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I'll second that for discussion. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails with Counselor Jackson and Facio opposed. So I just want to jump in on this one here. So I'm gonna hope that Counselor Facio and Counselor Jackson are willing to have some discussion on this. We need to appoint a deputy mayor. It's required under the charter. It makes it very difficult on staff and everyone else without having a deputy mayor in place. And it's even difficult for council members. So what is it that Council Facio, I'm gonna start maybe if I can, Counselor Facio, what is it that you would like to see?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Wee. You brought up a very good point. I think the system we've had in the past where we do 3 or 4 months per councillor has worked out very well for as long as I've been on council. And I think that's the procedure that we should follow. And I think it'd be appropriate that we resolve this in our first meeting in January when we again have a full council here. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Jackson. Just help me out, just before you answer, Counselor Jackson. My understanding is that you do not want to take the position of deputy mayor. Is that?
That's correct.
Thank you. Go ahead, Counselor.
I just want us to wait till the next council meeting in January when Councillor Vidal is back. Thank you.
Thank you. Order, please. Order, please. So I'm going to put a motion on the table because I think that we can deal with this right now. So is that for the year, for the next 3 years, that Counselor Allen, Counselor Bidell, and Counselor Facio do 4-month terms every year, again, until the end of our term. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Counselor Facio. So I move that. Discussion on that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to point out that when I set up the system where each of the 4 councillors had 3 months to be deputy mayor, that was at a different time and place when there was a generally cooperative council. Given the current circumstances, I think that what you're suggesting may be an act of diplomacy, but it certainly doesn't satisfy my objective of having an effective mayor and an effective deputy. I think that it's,
Point of order, Mayor Wood.
what's the point of order?
What's your
Point of order, Mayor Wood. I think the discussion is going off what you brought up as a good suggestion. And I don't think trying to badmouth
I don't think,
other people is a good thing to do. Can we just carry on with what your suggestion is and vote on it?
And Mr. Mayor, what would have been appropriate if Councillor Jackson, Councillor Facio wanted to delay this until the return of Councillor Vidal in January? What would have been appropriate would have been a motion to table this resolution and discuss it again in January. And they didn't do that. They voted against it. So I just see this as being a waste of time. Thank you.
thank you. So the motion on the table is that we will continue how it was for this year on the same rotation. So that would be Counselor, I guess it would be Counselor Allen would be deputy mayor as of January 1st for 4 months. And then it would go Counselor Facio for 4 months and Counselor Bidell for 4 months. And that would rotate for the next 3 years. That's the motion that was on the table. Thank you. So ready to call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Counselor Allen opposed. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is questions from the public.
Any questions from the public?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Alan Garno, 641 Schooner. I'm actually, I think, speaking as a member of the APC because I have a question with regard to the disposition of the approval of, or the minutes that were in today's agenda. When we talk about process, and many of you saw the last meeting where I referred to process. And then the motion that you proposed, Mayor Wood, is the process of the whole system. My main concern about process had to do with how the APC reported to council. After today's meeting, my concern has been amplified considerably. My question is, having put the minutes through and put them in the consent agenda, and having adopted the minutes that are in there without any discussion or debate, am I to assume that you approve? Is that particular development has the approval or follows the recommendation of the APC?
Let me answer that question for you. So I'll answer that question for you. So the consent agenda was not just going to make it so you can hear. Yep.
Turn the volume up here so you can get through here.
Can you hear me now? There we go. So the consent agenda was not adopted tonight. It was just received. So the consent agenda is just receipt. It's just information. Turn your speaker on. Turn your speaker on again and go ahead. But can you turn your speaker back on? Thank you.
My question then, in this particular proposal that came in those minutes, that had to do with a development that was well on the way. There were some apparently, there were conflicting resolutions at the very end where one said we pass it through to the council and the other was to ask for some reports to report to the council in time for the meeting. And the reason for that conflict and why there was an apparent change of mind between two motions is because the developer was very concerned about any further delays. And I think it was generally the feeling on our APC that day that he had a legitimate reason for the concern about the delay. This happened to be a proposal that had been before council before. A lot of things were changed and they came back with, as I said in the meeting, it wasn't just tweaking their proposal. They completely met the requirements and did a yeoman's job and considerably they solved every problem, the parking, everything. And I think that they deserve to be able to get on with things. And we discovered there were things that were there that we wanted to see supporting reports. They weren't readily available at the time. That's why, and we didn't want to delay it. So we said, well, let's have the 4 reports come before council when you consider it. So I feel now that we tried for that developer, and we're not there to advocate on the part of a developer. It just so happens, and in fact, my interest in the planning, by the way, didn't go back to just 2 meetings ago when I was appointed to the commission. I've been following the planning process of different things from the time I arrived in Harrison. And this was one that when I remember when it first came, and then when it came back, it was impressive. So so now you can understand my concern about the process. Reporting to the council from the APC is not solved by having you read our minutes and expect you to interpret what we meant. The next minutes should be a little better because there was actually a consolidated motion at the end, which indicated specifically what our decision was and the reasons why. And I think you would find that as a counselor far more reassuring than to try to pick through the minutes and pick out the things that count and which ones don't. So I'm sorry to ramble on, but I did have some concern. I'm sincerely sorry that Ken Gisborne to hear the news that he's resigned because we have a good group on that APC right now. I love working with all of them, including Ken, and I'm sorry he's not going to continue with us. But the rest of us are committed, and if we can bump up the numbers a bit in the next little while in some way, that would certainly help, because right now our quorum is 4 and we've only got 4, and if one can't make it, we're up the creek. So thank you for your patience, but I did want to make sure that you understand my concern about process, and I'm concerned about a lot of the things you said too. But I think that it'll all shake out in one way, but we have to be able to streamline this so that our developers know what's up and how long they can expect to wait. I think this particular development that was referred to in tonight's meeting where you just received the report, I'm sure the developer is very upset that it's going to be till January now before anything happens on it. There are 2 more major developments on our table. We've already developed one or not developed one, but we've already discussed one. And that has generated a lot of concern and questions too. So there's more to go, but we sincerely want to do a good job for our council and for our village. And that's our commitment. But I'm concerned that once we've done that, what do you do with it? Thank you.
Thank you. Now I can hear you.
My name is Leslie Gazishan and 811 Ramona Place. I have a few questions to Alan and Mr. Faccio. And also 90%, 99% of bylaws in the village was designed by them to accommodate Kingma Corporation. And how they live with themselves to
Your worship. Oh, no.
reject everything what was
Order.
put forward
Order.
and not reasoning. Yeah, you can leave, just leave your paycheck too. Because
Order. Counselor, you've been cut off, sir. Leslie, sorry, you've been cut off.
you
You're out
cut
of,
me off.
you're out of order.
You just stay.
You're out of order, sir. Please have a seat. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Is there any questions on Zoom?
If anybody on Zoom has a question, please raise your hand. Oh, it looks like we have a question from Muriel, Your Worship. Muriel, I'm just gonna unmute you here. You should be unmuted. Oh, you just have to unmute yourself. Oh, she disappeared. Okay, never mind, Your Worship. Doesn't look like there's any other questions.
There's no questions from anybody on Zoom? Okay. Well, call for adjournment, moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Faccio. Call the question, all in favor, nobody was opposed, passes unanimously. Merry Christmas, everybody.